Strategic Hotbox with Dr. Brandi Stankovic. Discussing leadership, business, and how to take control of your life and achieve greatness. From the streets of Las Vegas, energized, informed, and never diluted. It's time to kick some ass.
Hello, my name is Brandi Stankovic, and welcome to the Strategic Hotbox. Today, we are going to talk with a very special person. He's my partner in crime, my partner in life. He's my brother, Ryan Stankovic, or as affectionately call him Bub or Stank on ya. We'll hear a little bit more about that in a minute. But today's episode is one of the most important. As you know, I run a consulting company called Mitchell Stankovic and Associates, and Ryan is a big part of that. But our mantra is to get over it. So let's dig right in. So get over it is so important to business. It's so important to my journey in leadership. And it's an important topic that we have here on the podcast today. And as you know, the podcast is broken into 3 segments. First, we have the Learn segment. It's an opportunity for us to share information, to dig into a particular leadership challenge that I'm facing or that many of you are facing and have shared with us. And then we go into the love section, because business is really all about relationships. It's all about people connecting with one another and making things happen. And then finally, it's execution. We call it kick ass because we want people to walk away and do something about it. We want us to do something about it, really, because in the execution is where change is created. In execution is where shit happens. In execution is where life is. And if we don't do it, then all the information that I share with you is just like a really cool conversation while you're brushing your hair or driving to work, right? And I don't want that to be the case. I want you to go out there and make things happen. And today with Get Over It, this topic is so incredibly important in that because we want to, on the one hand, quit whining and minimize things that get in your way. But on the other hand, it's about getting over the ability to let things go. And sometimes it's easier said than done. So let's go ahead and I'll frame it in before we bring Ryan in for discussion. So get over it. It's been my mantra for a really long time. As a matter of fact, as a young teenager, I think I was in high school, the Eagles came out with Hell Freezes Over. You might remember the song, Get Over It. Does anyone remember? Exactly. You might be jamming to this right now, but it was something that my parents would play and just always urge me to get over it. And I think that is probably good for a teenage female, right? And if any of you have teenage females in your life, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But really, it's this idea of being able to just let things go. And so it's been a part of my life for a really long time. But some of the lyrics there from the Eagles that I think are so powerful is the opening line. It says, I turn on the tube and what do I see? A whole lot of people crying, don't blame me. And I think that's so true in business too, right? With accountability. And it says that they spend all their time feeling sorry for themselves, a victim of this, a victim of that. Your mama's too thin and your daddy's too fat. And just get over it already. And that's the case of what we're going to try to do today. And this served me as a young person and as an adult. And it's become our family rule for my little beefcakes too, to get over it. Because I always tell them, like, if they're crying or if they're mad at each other and they start whining, which is like, honestly, like nails on a chalkboard for me. But I would say to him, crying doesn't serve you. Calm down, breathe, focus on the results that you want to have. Living in the emotion of the moment, sometimes, especially like in the crying or whining sense, it gets in your way. So let's apply it to business in a grander scale. It impacts really our emotional intelligence. We've talked a lot about that in previous episodes. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it in the future, but it's about having some emotional maturity so many things don't slow you down or they don't become speed bumps in your leadership journey and progress. Do you remember that guy Pavlov? I'm sure you do, right? I mean, he's won some Nobel Prizes and stuff, right? So what Pavlov did, as you might remember, is he had a dog, right? And he would feed the dog, ring the bell, feed the dog, ring the bell. And he did that over and over to create this conditioning. So eventually all he had to do was ring the bell and the dog would salivate, right? Because he thought he was getting fed. Well, there's something to that. And the good news is that humans are a little bit more advanced and transformed and evolved from dogs. And that there's certain things that cause certain reactions. And we want to be able to have certain actions not already then impact certain results. Let me give you an example. So say I really wanted my husband to do the dishes, right? And in real life, Jimmy totally does the dishes. So when he listens to this, your dish doing is great, babe, whatever. But let's just go with this example. Say I wanted Jimmy to do the dishes. And so we set a pact, Jimmy and I, we shake on it. He's going to do the dishes. And then I get home today and the dishes aren't done. Now what? Right? And in some cases, some people might get mad, you might like break plates or throw things or get angry, none of which is going to get to me to my result. What is the result that I want in the situation? And some people might say it's to get the dishes done, so you might as well just do them yourself. And that's not the answer either. The result that I want is for Jimmy to do the dishes, right? So going into that situation, I may want to feel angry, I may want to feel disappointment or frustration, right? Or I may just want to do them myself. But none of those things help me get further to my result. And that's what Get Over It's all about. It's taking that moment and having a choice. You may have heard of a gentleman called Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning. Incredible book. It's a must read for any leader, you know, in their progression. And he was a victim of the Auschwitz concentration camp. He was an inmate there and he survived. Obviously, he wrote this book, and he talked about that power of choice, that human beings, if they project into the future what they want to accomplish, they have the ability to choose in the moment how to respond to certain actions, and it will lead them to different results. And that's a powerful choice. And sometimes it's hard not to get kind of hung up on the emotional drama of things. And so really to focus on what we want out of it. So an example, very early in my career, I started working at CSN, the College of Southern Nevada, and as a professor. And my very first day, it was in 2000, I think it was in 2005. My very first day, I've got my briefcase and my markers and all this awesome presentation. And I set it all out, and I'm just ready to just rock the students' world. And I go and like lean on the table, making a point. I was standing. I don't know exactly what I was doing, but I was leaning. And when I did that, the table fell over. Like it fell over. And so did I, obviously. Markers went flying. The whole class is like, like worried, fearful of my life. And I just stood up and like my neck started turning red in my face, like I just was like overwhelmed with being embarrassed. And this is my first time public speaking in that manner, being in front of the students. And I thought to myself, this is it. And I was walking out to my truck that night, kind of like all woe is me with my briefcase, and thought to myself, what's the worst that's going to happen? The students are all going to call their friends and be like, you will not believe what happened in class today. And I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do? And back then it was like, call my friends and you will not believe what I did in class today, right? I mean, that's the worst. There's no anything beyond that. And if I had let that take over, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. Because if I wasn't able to kind of channel that and get over that and use that, now mind you, the next couple classes, I don't lean on tables very often, right? In fear of that. On the flip side, we have to be able to move on and get over it. Another example of this, how this has really served me, is this year, my husband and I decided to participate in a triathlon. Very exciting for any of you out there that compete and participate in different runs and things. I'm all about it. And we try to do one thing a year to kind of challenge ourselves. And the triathlon was certainly that, because swimming is not something that we do. I mean, we do it like for leisure and things with our babies, but not necessarily in a competitive or timed manner. Certainly not out in the lake, other than swimming back to the jet ski. You just threw yourself off, right? And so we kind of prepped for it, we trained and whatever. And then we went out to the lake, and it was one of those days for anybody that knows Southern Nevada, the wind can pick up here, right? And so the waves were just bigger than if I was standing up, it felt like, which I'm sure wasn't that bad, but it was very dramatic being out there. The water's really cold. You get out there, and not to mention, I'm pretty nervous anyway. And I was swimming. I started to swim and found that people would talk to me when I was out there swimming. I think it was their own way of handling stress or whatever, which I absolutely hated, because I would come up from swimming like, what? And then, why am I talking to you? So it became this like overwhelming kind of moment. And one thing that's different about the water than it's when you're jogging is if you're tired or you want to stop, you can't just stop, right? I mean, when you're running, and you could just stop running and you won't die. If you're swimming and you stop swimming, you're in trouble, right? So where I'm out there, and another woman has kind of a panic attack, and I guess it seems to be pretty common in what I've read about, in my one experience in this. And so she has a panic attack. So the jet ski goes to get her, and in the process of the person on the jet ski like kind of covers the rest of us in water, or the people that were around her in water. And one thing I wasn't anticipating and didn't train for was my body to go like to have a tough time going for air, gasping for air. And so my body kind of went into panic mode for a second. And so I flipped over on my back, and I'm like looking at the sky going, what if I don't finish this? And then I thought to myself, the only way to get this done is to keep swimming. right? The only way for me to get done with this triathlon is to keep swimming. And that perseverance that I had in that moment has really served me the rest of the year. This was early this year, like where I'm just tired or in this place of whatever, to be able to just go, hey, I'm doing this for a purpose. I know what my result is. Focus on the end and swim. So that whole like kind of Dory thing, just keep swimming, whatever. It's just this idea that you just have to go. And so we're really going to pull in here a subject matter expert, somebody obviously that's very close to me, and talk to him about his experiences in that. But getting over it is just, it can be so powerful for leaders. With that in mind, before I introduce you to Ryan and give the formal introduction, I asked a few people over the last week or so, what does get over it mean to them? And I asked them like, hey, why should people get over it? Check it out.
Get over it means to me is to move forward. Don't keep looking at the past.
Get the F over it. There's no sense in drama.
I think that you can't keep dwelling on a problem if it's totally and completely done and over with.
That progression is really based in solution and forward-based thinking, and I think that if you dwell on a problem, like she said, you get stuck in that and there's just no forward movement.
Kept on and I said, Mommy, can I do it? Mommy, can I do it? She says, get over it. And I say, okay.
What does whining get you?
Nothing.
Lila is the final person there, and she is such a star. And so we are now going to introduce you to her daddy, my brother, Ryan Stankovic. He's the Director of Quality Assurance at Hamilton Storage. He's also an analyst for us at Mitchell Stankovic and Associates. So he runs all of our peer-to-peer when we do merger analysis, combining the financials of different organizations. He, is an engineer and one of those smart guys that is also just a fun and charismatic person to be around. I'm very thankful and lucky to have him here with us today. So say hello to Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, how are you?
What did you think of my nickname of Stankonia right off the bat? So tell me, what does get over it mean to you?
Well, like the introduction, don't dwell. It's moving on. It's being forward thinking. You can't get hung up on a problem, but you also can't get hung up on a success. You have to always be thinking about what is next. If you get hung up on problems, then, you need to course correct. You need to move forward so you can be successful. But when you're successful, you can't get stuck in, look what I did. You got to see what's next and then project, the course to make that happen.
I love that you frame it in the sense of success also. I feel like, because so much we think about get over it, and even that I was just saying, get over about the negatives and that kind of thing, but you're so right. I mean, how often do we get blinded by things that are good for a second? You're like, oh, brush your shoulder off kind of thing, and then don't move forward. It becomes inactive inertia or something to that effect.
Yeah, well, it happens like a lot, and I think that's what separates career progression versus the people that you call upon for a problem. The people that could see, be forward thinking, see what our next step is. It's so necessary. It's something that I see in need in leadership and for the different departments here.
So from speaking of your business and engineering, from an engineering perspective, how has that impacted you in your career?
Well, it's constant, from from when I was really green till I'm where I am here. Quality assurance, it's always, you have to I do a lot of the corrective and preventative actions. So I am always chasing root cause and then course correcting. So one of the biggest things is accountability, people owning it, own the problem so that we could fix it and move forward. So currently I work on Get Over It at a weekly meeting, and we try to have solutions to things to move forward every day. Otherwise, you become stagnant. You don't.
What does your
progress.
team think about that? Are they as energetic about the theme song from the Eagles as you are?
Well, I don't think so. It's hard for this
culture.
Well, it's hard to project corrective actions, and a lot of them. I'm the document Nazi, and so there's people always look at quality assurance as, oh, they're just bogging us down. They're just trying to get us to write everything we did so we could present it for an audit. Well, yeah, but it also makes the information available so you're not scratching your head next time. It also writes it down so that we could follow up and make sure that corrections are truly being made. It won't reoccur.
Yeah, that makes
People
sense.
gotta get
So
over it and do the work.
Yeah, you have to put in the work, absolutely. And from your perspective, what do you think is the hardest thing for you to get over as a personal leader?
Disregard. People not, or like if you put together a corrective action, and people disregard it and they go back to what they think works. I don't ever want to implement something or be part of a group that implements something that makes life more difficult without, a justifiable reason, and if you disregard the correction, you're really just working backwards. It's just, this goes even for like my family, like I don't like to repeat myself. So if there's a problem and or you get hurt or you do something and you say,
oh, there they are.
It's because you did this and now we should do this so this doesn't happen. And then, your kids will just laugh at you and really just do it.
I loved in that intro video when LiLV said, I just asked for it over and over and over again, and then I'm told to get over it. And I say, okay. I was thinking to myself, there's no way she actually says just, okay.
No, but since she was pretty much a baby, I've drilled into her, what's whining get you. So she'll answer that on a dime.
What do you have to get over as a parent?
Yourself a lot. It's pretty hard to. Also, the constant reminder. You constantly remind yourself of how much you like your parents.
Oh no! I can't believe you just said that.
And that every time I see myself doing something, I kind of have to reflect, So you gotta, if you want to make the change, like you said, you actually have to consciously
go after it. One of the best things that you said earlier to me, in conversation with work or whatever, you said that your son has been up every night and you haven't had any sleep. But you know what? Hey, I gotta get over it. Screw it.
Oh yeah, that's constant. Yeah, he just started daycare at a new place, so he went from cold to ear infection to another cold to another ear infection to
Lovely.
teething. So it's for the last 2 months he hasn't really slept.
So Daddy doesn't sleep.
So Daddy doesn't sleep because he doesn't fall asleep unless he's laying on me. So I run on 2 hours if it's
nice.
But
So if we take it back to the business environment for a second, because I think there's so much crossover from business to home, and we also do the get over it with our kids and the quit whining. There literally is nothing worse to me than whining. Like sometimes I look at them and I'm like, why are you whining? Use a normal voice and we'll have a conversation, right? But if we take it kind of back to the office, because that's also true in the office sometimes as well, what's like a disaster or a lesson learned that you've had to deal with in regards to get over it?
Without too much self-incrimination, I've pretty much the whole career. It's like I'm not saying my career is a disaster. That would be terrible. But what I'm saying is, I worked in manufacturing, and I did production mold runs. I would do, I'd set up these machines, and I've hooked up a mold to a machine and didn't tie off the water hoses correctly, and about 5 minutes in, I flooded a building.
Wow.
Because I popped a coolant hose, so it's not just flooding, but it's flooding a clean room. So
So what'd you do in that?
In that step, I had a huge corrective action that needed to take place. We went through a corrective action for segregating the goods. We had to, go through a whole cleaning policy. I had to write a hose layout program. I had to make independent hoses for different molds to ensure that it wouldn't happen again.
Did you have to toughen up and tell yourself to quit crying, or?
Well, I had to toughen up and tell myself to quit crying because, when the mold, broke the water hose, I, go running in, and glycol on cement is very slippery. So
did you fall down?
Of course I fell down. Not insult to injury, right? You go in trying to fix a problem, and the first thing you do is it punches you in the face.
But there's learning from that.
So yes, I quite literally had to tell myself to get up and quit crying. And then, we had to move forward. And one of the good things about, starting my career in manufacturing, especially the high-paced automation, is that you can't dwell on anything.
Right.
And it's, every time you're talking every second that the machine doesn't open and close, it's money that's not being made for the company.
Sure.
So, it's now.
Yeah.
It's what are we doing now to make things right? And what are you going to do to make up the time that was lost on that machine?
And so you can't spend more of that time whimpering or any of that kind of stuff.
Oh,
I love that. And what a perfect place to kind of leave us in the fact that it's now. And I love that. And that'll kind of lead us into our kick-ass section. So Ryan, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate the time that you had and for sharing the time that you fell down in coolant or whatever. I super going to make fun of you over the holidays over that. Just it's now fuel that you've left me with. So I appreciate it. It's good seeing it. Hello to the family.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye now.
Hi, you're listening to my granddaughter Brandi's Hot Box. She's special. I love her. Carl Mitchell, U.S. Navy, World War II.
What an amazing shout out and hot for here for our hot box. That is my grandpa and World War II vet Carl Mitchell, served this country and served a family. He's a grandpa to 16 of us, a great grandpa to over 30, and even a great great grandpa to a couple. And we lost him here just a couple weeks ago. But the cool part is we got that amazing video, and I can feel the emotion in it. Amazing video from him. So thank you to Grandpa for being a part of our hot box today. And thank you to Ryan. What a perfect time to have my brother and my grandpa all here with me together. My grandpa is certainly, you'll love this photo that's popping up right now. What a perfect time for that. My brother and I recreated a photo for our parents, as you can see, and nailed it. So this is, if you are just listening to the podcast, I urge you, we'll post it up on our website and Facebook and things. I urge you to check it out on the video so you can see that photo as well. So thank you to Grandpa. Thank you to Ryan. And now let's rock and roll and get into some kick-ass top 5. So with our kick-ass, we talked about the big picture, what happens in a personal sense when it comes to children. I've been that place where I've taken a child up under the arm and stormed out of somewhere. Ryan was talking about not sleeping. I mean, it's a personal, and it obviously applies in the things that he was sharing from an engineering standpoint of having to move forward now. Loved that. So for our top 5 takeaways for you today, number 1 is identify areas that need the improvement. So he had some awesome terms for that as far as identifying the problem and creating solutions and policies and procedures to support that. But really just identify where you catch yourself whining. What do you typically whine about? One of the things that I've kind of done a check of myself on lately is being addicted to being busy, right? I'm always busy. And so that is something that I need to make sure that I kind of keep under wraps and re-examine and not be whining about being busy. So whether it's being multitasking or being tired or just something that you have in your life, identify that place that you find yourself whining and figure out ways to work towards solution. Number 2 is avoid proclamation or defensiveness. And what I mean by that is so often when I work in a executive coaching standpoint, I'll be working with somebody and they'll say, well, the person came up to me and said, you're not good at your job. And so then I just told her. And they'll get huffy or whatever. And I said to him, I go, if somebody had walked in the exact same manner and said to you, your hair is green, or something completely ridiculous, you'd have looked at her and been like, well, what? Right? And there'd been no emotion attached to it whatsoever. You'd been like, well, that's untrue. My hair is not green. And let's go forward and get back to what we were talking about. But because somebody comes in and hits some emotional trigger, like you're not good at your job, suddenly we need to be proclamating how good or fancy we are or having defensiveness kick in. And all of that is that emotional kind of intelligence that we've shouted about, but really our ability to just stop in the moment and disconnect from that so we can be more forward acting. Number 3 is, again, it really ties into practicing your emotional intelligence, both your awareness as well as your management of that. So it ties into your avoiding your proclamation and defensiveness, or number 2, but also just ability to just be aware, be intentional. Number 4 is the start blank. So often when we get into situations, they feel emotional. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of behind the scenes, invisibles, I call them. And you want to just be able to stop that and say, if it wasn't me, or if I take myself out of the situation, what would you give advice to someone else? If they were having the same problem, what advice would you give to them? And it'll help kind of frame that discussion in a different way and take the emotions and the players out of it. And number 5 is choose your focus. Know where you want to go and go after it. And really, it's all about making that choice. And kind of want to leave you with this story. I told you about my grandpa. And so he just passed away. And Mitchell Stankovic and Associates, where we work, there's a few of us that are family members. Obviously met Ryan and there's a few others that hopefully you'll meet in future episodes. And nonetheless, in that process, when he passed away, I was the only one that was here in Nevada to be around. And so I was in shock. And so I took my kids and I was loading them up in the car, and James asked, what's wrong? And I know it's not the right way to do it. And I'm looking back, hindsight's 2020, but I was like, your papa is dead. And I, in that moment, was just, like it was awful. And I wish I could have had this perfect story to share with him, but I didn't. And that's what came out of my mouth. And he cried and we had our moment. We get in the car and I load him up. And then he looks at me, he turns around and looks at me. He's like, you know what, Mom, today I'm going to choose to be the happy one because I know everybody is going to be sad and they're going to need a smile. And I thought to myself, yes, my angel, you're going to choose. And that's what I'm offering to you. Choose it. Choose life. Choose your focus. And that is our top 5 kick-ass. So, my friends, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Ryan. Thank you to Grandpa. Thank you to all the people that participated in the Get Over It Talks. If you want to share your thoughts with us on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Brandi Love. And, obviously you can download these episodes and all the others at our website at strategichotbox.com anytime. But now I want you to get out there and kick some ass.